the deadliest forgotten wars in history. The Paraguayan War began when Paraguay clashed with Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay over territorial disputes and control of the Rio de la Plata trade route. Paraguay fought fiercely but faced overwhelming opposition from 3 neighboring nations, resulting in catastrophic losses. Military campaigns involved devastating sieges and pitched battles, causing the deaths of up to 60% of Paraguay's male population. The war left Paraguay politically and economically shattered, reshaping South America's map. Yet outside the continent, it is largely forgotten despite its immense human cost. The Second Congo War started when rebel groups and neighboring countries intervened in the Democratic Republic of Congo following political instability and ethnic tensions. Fighting involved 9 African nations and numerous militias, with battles, disease, and famine affecting millions of civilians. Over 5 million people are estimated to have died, making it the deadliest conflict since World War II. Despite its scale and complexity, the war received minimal international attention and remains largely unknown outside Africa. Yet, it reshaped Central Africa politically and economically. The Kandyan Wars began when the British attempted to conquer the Kingdom of Kandy in Sri Lanka, facing fierce resistance from local forces who used guerrilla tactics and knowledge of the mountainous terrain. Battles involved sieges, ambushes, and brutal reprisals on both sides. Thousands of soldiers and civilians died during the conflict, which ended with the annexation of Kandy and the consolidation of British colonial control. Despite its significance in colonial history, the Kandyan Wars are rarely mentioned outside Sri Lanka or specialized historical studies. The Ethiopian Civil War started after the overthrow of Emperor Haile Selassie and the rise of a Marxist military regime. Rebel groups, neighboring interventions, and government forces fought across the country, while famine and executions added to the death toll. Over 1 million people died before the war ended with the collapse of the regime. Overshadowed by global Cold War conflicts, this war remains little known internationally, though it profoundly affected Ethiopia's history. The Taiping Rebellion began in China when Hong Xiuquan, claiming to be the younger brother of Jesus, led a massive uprising against the Qing dynasty, aiming to establish a heavenly kingdom of great peace. The rebellion spread across southern and central China, involving sieges, pitched battles, and massacres in both cities and countryside. Entire regions were depopulated due to fighting, famine, and disease, with death toll estimates ranging from 20 to 30 million, making it one of the deadliest conflicts in history. Despite its enormous scale and impact on Chinese society, the Taiping Rebellion is rarely covered in global history discussions, leaving its human cost largely forgotten outside specialized studies. The Imjin War started when Japan, under Toyotomi Hideyoshi, invaded Korea intending to conquer the peninsula and eventually push into China. Korea, supported by Ming China, mounted fierce resistance through both land and naval battles, including notable naval victories by Admiral Yi Sun-sin. The war caused massive destruction across Korea and parts of China, with estimated deaths between 1 and 2 million people. Castles and farmland were destroyed, populations displaced, and the conflict left lasting regional tensions. Yet, it is rarely covered in Western history education. The Mahdist War began as an Islamic revolt in Sudan against Egyptian and British control, led by Muhammad Ahmad, who declared himself the Mahdi. Rebel forces captured key cities and defeated colonial armies in several battles, while sieges and massacres caused widespread civilian suffering. The conflict killed hundreds of thousands of people and reshaped Sudanese politics for decades. Eventually, the British reasserted control, but the war is largely forgotten outside Sudan and the history of colonial Africa, despite its severity and long-lasting effects. The Cristero War started in Mexico when Catholic insurgents rebelled against anti-religious government laws enacted by President Plutarco Elias Calles. The rebellion spread across central and western Mexico, with guerrilla warfare, ambushes, and brutal reprisals by both sides. Roughly 250,000 people were killed, including civilians caught in the crossfire. The conflict ended with negotiated compromises, but for decades it was suppressed in official histories, leaving this significant struggle for religious freedom mostly unknown outside Mexico. The Aceh War began when the Dutch attempted to subjugate the Sultanate of Aceh in northern Sumatra, Indonesia. Resistance included guerrilla campaigns, sieges of fortified towns, and protracted battles in the dense jungle terrain. Tens of thousands of soldiers and civilians died over more than 3 decades, making it one of the longest colonial wars in history. Despite the conflict's brutality and significance in Dutch colonial expansion, it remains largely obscure in global history narratives. The War of the Pacific started when Chile fought Bolivia and Peru over control of nitrate-rich territories in the Atacama Desert. The conflict involved battles across deserts and mountains, naval engagements, and prolonged sieges. Chile's victory left Bolivia landlocked and reshaped the region's economic and political landscape. Roughly 150,000 people died, yet outside South America, the war is largely forgotten despite its profound long-term effects. The First Carlist War in Spain began after the death of King Ferdinand VII, leading to a succession dispute between supporters of his daughter Isabella II and his brother Carlos. The war became a broader conflict between liberals and conservatives, with battles across northern Spain, sieges, and guerrilla fighting. Around 200,000 people died before the liberals secured victory, but the war is rarely mentioned outside Spain, despite shaping the country's political future. The Ogaden War began when Somalia invaded Ethiopia's Ogaden region, claiming it for Somali territory and aiming to unite ethnic Somalis. Ethiopia, recovering from internal upheaval, resisted with support from the Soviet Union and Cuban forces, while Somalia received limited backing from Western allies. Battles raged across arid plains and mountains, with fierce fighting, airstrikes, and artillery bombardments. Tens of thousands of soldiers and civilians died, and hundreds of thousands were displaced, causing widespread famine and suffering. The war ended with Ethiopian victory, leaving deep-seated tensions in the Horn of Africa. The Chaco War started when Bolivia and Paraguay clashed over the Gran Chaco region, which was thought to contain oil reserves. Fighting took place in harsh, arid terrain, with disease and extreme conditions causing as many casualties as combat itself. Around 100,000 people died before Paraguay secured victory. The war had lasting effects on both nations' borders and economies, yet it is rarely remembered outside South America. The Sikh Wars occurred when the British East India Company fought the Sikh Empire in India to expand colonial control. Battles included major sieges and open field engagements, resulting in tens of thousands of deaths. After the Second Sikh War, Punjab was annexed by the British, ending Sikh sovereignty. Despite its importance in Indian and colonial history, the conflict is largely forgotten in broader historical narratives. The Dungan Revolt started as a Muslim uprising against the Qing dynasty in China's northwest provinces due to religious, ethnic, and economic tensions. The rebellion spread rapidly as local leaders challenged Qing authority, sparking widespread violence and massacres. Battles raged across Shanxi, Gansu, and Xinjiang provinces, and famine worsened the suffering. Both rebel and civilian populations were heavily affected, with an estimated 8 to 12 million people dying. The Qing eventually suppressed the revolt, but the destruction reshaped the region and caused long-lasting social upheaval. Yet, it remains mostly forgotten in global history.